resolutions. Get a coach.
She is Zinzi Kibiko.
And he is Michael G. Gito.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Dettol, Kenya's #1 antiseptic for fighting germs. Become a powerful Kenyan mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
This is KTN News.
This is Business Today, where we bring you the latest in corporate news and keep you up to date with the dynamic pulse of the economy. My name is Malika Kazia. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Now, many smiles, of course, at the pump today as reduced prices from the Energy Regulatory Commission come into effect. The new prices are the highest drops witnessed since last year, signaling better days ahead for consumers. More details for you coming up on the show. Also, I will tell you about the 78 sub-locations within Kenya that have now been connected to voice services. All right, we will of course also be talking to Edward Mungai, who is the CEO of Kenya Climate and Innovation Center. All that and more coming up for you, but first, here are the highlights.
Tulikuwa tumeumia sana, lakini sasa vile imeshuka sasa na kila kitu itakuja at least chini kidogo.
Cost of living set to come down as pump prices drop. Nyeri traders hold protests blocking new miller. And Kenya urged to diversify trade partners as Brexit vote expected to spark fresh tensions. All right, let's begin with the markets, taking a look now at that for you. Let's see what's happening there. Of course, we will tell you about the NSE performance, the currencies as well. Let's start with the money markets now. The dollar, let's see the trading there. Buying rate at 101 shillings 54 cents. It's selling at 101.84 shillings. If we look at the sterling pound right now, its buying rate is at 130 shillings 34 cents. It's selling at 130.64 shillings. The euro buying at 117 shillings 17 cents and selling at 117.44 shillings. And now the NSE performance as of market closure last evening. Turnover stood at 687 million, and the bourse opened the week with shares traded worth 25.9 million. If we look at the NSE 20 share index, it stands at 2,809.16, and bonds traded worth 1.1 billion. Now for your most active stock, Safaricom there, moving volumes of 22.01 million. As for KCB coming in next, it's moving about 639,000. Centum following with 524,300 and Bamburi there 729,000. Now from your most active counters to your winning stocks, Express Limited has actually noted a hike of 10% there, trading at 6 shillings 60 cents. If we look at Ainam Bank coming in next, it's trading at 100 shillings and it is actually going up by 9.89%. Housing Finance following suit there, taking up a hike of 5.76% to trade at 5 shillings 88 cents. And finally, Flame Tree trading at 2 shillings and 60 cents. It's going up by 5.69%. Let's look at your losing stocks. Kenya Orchards there, trading at 3 shillings 10 cents. It's going down by 5.49% comparatively. If we look at Sasini Tea, it's also taken a downward turn off about 3% there, 3.28% to trade at 19 shillings 15 cents. All right, I want to take a look now at our Twitter poll question for you this afternoon. Of course, you can tell us your thoughts at KTN Kenya and at KTN News KE. Now, the question is, how will the drop in fuel prices affect your budget? You can also let me know your thoughts at Malika Kazia. That hashtag is KTN Business. Once again, the question for you, how will the drop in prices affect your budget? We're talking there, of course, about the fuel prices. Speaking of the fuel prices, let's begin our bulletin with that. Now, motorists and commuters are, of course, enjoying lower transport costs following the release of the monthly pump prices for the month of January. In the latest review, Super Petrol reduced by 9 shillings 33 cents and is retailing at 104 shillings 21 cents per litre in Nairobi. If we look at diesel, it had the highest price change. A litre of diesel will go down by 10 shillings 4 cents. And kerosene is reporting the lowest drop of 3 shillings 52 cents to retail at 101 shillings 70 cents. Now, the ERC did say that the cost of crude for deliveries that were ordered in December was 12.5% lower at $59.50 per barrel compared to the price of $68 per barrel in November last year. Hence, the steep fall in pump prices. All right, now following this particular reduction, Kenyan motorists are quite upbeat, and this is all due to the review in the fuel prices. Now, despite this, there is, of course, a cross-section of consumers that KTN Business spoke to that still feel more needs to be done by the government, especially when it comes to addressing the high cost of living. Our reporter, Ashley Mork, gathers more on what Kenyans had to say about the price change. Take a look.
Serikali inaweza saidia sisi watu wa kiwango ya chini. Ifunguze mafuta bei. At least tukue tunaweza afford. Mtu hata akibeba na 50 aendi hasara. Kwa sababu wakifanya vile sisi tutakuwa pia tunafurahia vile huduma zetu ziko, hata wateja tutakuwa tunapoteza wateja. Zamani hatukuwa tunaacha mteja hata wa 50, lakini sasa hizi juu ya bei vile imepanda, mafuta vile imepanda bei, inakuwa ni changamoto.
Kulingana na hii transportation yenye tunafanya, tulikuwa tumeumia sana, lakini sasa vile imeshuka, sasa na kila kitu itakucha at least chini kidogo.
Vile wametuangalia upande wa mafuta, pia watuangalie hata vitu zile zingine, sababu kuna changamoto kuu ambayo inakuwa kwa maduka na mabiashara. Mafuta inaanguka bei, lakini unakuta chakula imesimama pale pale. Ila mtu wa chini anajikuta yeye kununua chakula ni shida.
Tunajua kwamba itasaidia katika bidhaa zile ambao zinatengenezwa kupitia kwa mafuta, zitaweza kupunguka bei na transport pia itaweza kurudi chini. Kwa hivyo tutapata kwamba wakulima pia watafaidika kwa kupeleka vitu zao sokoni na kupata pesa ambayo inafaa.
All right, now moving on to banking. Kenya's economy has been projected to perform better in 2019, according to forecasts from Stanbic Bank, and they say major reforms are in the offing, including a repeal on the rate cap law, coupled with inflation, now averaging 4.9%. According to Gibran Qureshi, regional economist, shocks Kenya might witness include Brexit slowdown in the Eurozone, which will inevitably weigh down the GDP in advanced economies in coming years.
All about unleashing the private sector. It's all about making the private sector an engine of growth again. But I think our projection this year is that global growth won't be too far away from 2.3%. But we actually think going into 2020, global growth could actually be way below 1.5%. And everybody around them, emerging markets and Africa, will also indirectly be impacted. We can't be oblivious to what's happening outside there. We can't argue that we're not as integrated as we should have been. And some countries in Africa will be more impacted than the others. What's going to happen in the House of Commons? Why does it matter? It matters a lot for Kenya because of our concentration risk, both to the European Union and also to the UK, for horticulture and floriculture products.
Businesses transition from the innovation that they do into commercialization and make the business actually viable. And that's the gap that we need to start thinking about and discussing as an institution and working through this and how we see ourselves working through this. And we've set up a foundation at Stanbic that will start to address this and to deal with this aspect about how do we convert ideas into commercial ideas. Now,
all right, moving on from that particular conversation now to coffee. Coffee farmers in the Ndaro Ini coffee factory in Madira constituency, Nyeri County, are embroiled in a bitter disagreement over who should buy their coffee. Now, a section of the farmers today held peaceful demonstrations against the current buyer, a company only identified as Tropical, in favor of Traboka, a new company that is angling to wrestle control of the crop. Our Nyeri-based reporter Ibrahim Karanja brings us up to speed now.
Coffee farmers in Nyeri County are a divided lot. This is after the entry of a new coffee processing company that is threatening to tilt the coffee supply chain in the county.
Ile mpango iliyokuwapo ilikuwa kahawa ipelekwe kwa Tropical kwa nguvu. Lakini sisi wakulima tunasema ya kwamba kahawa yetu haitaenda kwa Tropical sababu yule mnunuzi ambaye anatununulia kahawa yetu direct anaitwa Traboka BV. Alikuwa ametuahidi na ametuahidi pia kwa barua ya kwamba atatupatia shilingi 100, that is net. Halafu atupatie shilingi 15 operations za factory. Halafu atupatia upgrade factory yetu.
A spot check by Kenyan News has been able to reveal alleged transaction of coffee sales being sold to one Tropical company. Locals are opposed to the unclear transaction with Tropical, which they argue did not follow due procedure.
Agreement ya mkulima na mila yule anachukua kahawa inakuwa ni ya mwaka moja. Wakati utakaponilipa pesa yangu ya mwaka huo, hiyo agreement inaishia hapo. Kwa hivyo mwaka ujao itakumbidi wewe kama mila ama mnunuaji ukuje uniulize nikupee kahawa yangu pia. Na kwa hivi leo huyo Tropical hajaingia hapa kufuata kwa wakulima kuwaomba kahawa. Yule mtu amesha kuja hapa ni Traboka mwenyewe. Na huyo Traboka ni mwanabiashara kutoka Ulaya. Na yeye ananunua kahawa kutoka Ethiopia. Akatuletea mtandao wa mpangilio wake vile atatusaidia sisi.
Reports of the entry of Traboka is proving to be a murky affair, with the management of Gikanda Coffee Farmers Association saying it is unfair and should be stopped. Local coffee farmers, however, claim the company is offering a mouth-watering deal, which is the bone of contention. This has since seen farmers hold protests, which later culminated with a reconciliatory meeting to end the stalemate. Traboka has reportedly bought Ndaroine Coffee Factory coffee drying materials and has promised to upgrade their processing machine. This could see farmers get better prices compared to the prevailing prices. Gikanda Coffee Farmers Society, under which these farmers fall, is however against the deal. A coffee buying contract lasts for a year, and according to the management, the current agreement between the association spans to end of September 2019. Determined to stop any suspicious transactions, farmers have resorted to restricting entry into the factory. A meeting has, however, been convened on Wednesday this week between the Farmer Society and the prospective buyers. It is expected that the meeting's resolution will end the impasse. Ibrahim Karanja, KTN News.
Thank you very much for that, Ibrahim Karanja. Of course, he will also be joining us later on in the show to tell us more about the fuel price change. But right now, speaking of the fuel, let's take a look once again at our Twitter poll question for you. Do let us know your thoughts on Twitter. It is, how will the drop in fuel prices affect your budget? At KTN Kenya, at Malika Kazia, with that hashtag KTN Business, you can let us know your thoughts, and we will be sampling your feedback on the show as well. Do let us know what you think in terms of that question. How will the drop in fuel prices affect your budget? All right, with that now, I want to move on to my interview of the day here for you. And now, according to NASA Global, temperatures around the world have risen by 0.8 degrees Celsius since 1880. Time and again, we've heard alarming statistics on climate change, and more so, it resulting from human actions. Joining me in studio now is the Kenya Climate and Innovation Center CEO, Edward Mungai, and we are going to delve into the conversation on climate change and more. Thank you so much for joining me, Edward.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I do know you're also a lecturer and a business school leader. So maybe I should call you Mwalimu?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, how about we begin by you telling us what Kenya Climate and Innovation Center is all about? What do you do?
Well, Kenya Climate Innovation Center is an institution which was established in 2012 by the World Bank with the funding from the UK government and the Danish government. And the sole mandate of the institution was to help Kenyans, and specifically youth, who had brilliant ideas on how they can come up with innovative solutions that can help Kenya to become more climate resilient. Well, I think that's mouthful. Basically, what it means is, can we have young Kenyans looking at the issue of climate change as an opportunity? Because as you just said, climate change have always been seen as a threat.
True.
But flip that, it could also be an opportunity. And how can we have the private sector coming up with innovative solutions that then should be able to address this challenge that we all have, or the challenge that humankind is facing in the 21st century. So, and to do this, basically, is to try and have people coming up with ideas which can then be transitioned to a business. But we understand that there are many challenges that they will face. For instance, they'll have issues with financing. So we do have ready financing, which then we can be able to help them to test their ideas. And if they succeed, we can help them to scale those ideas. Well, remember, these are young people also. They don't have the skills that are required to implement or to scale a business. So it is our job, again, to help them through business advisory, to make bankable business plan, to make financial models. Then that should be funded by investors and ourselves to scale those businesses. Well, the third thing that we do, which I call the elephant in the room, is where we provide them with support to have an enabling environment. Because it is known globally that innovation is always ahead of policy. So what that means is that we have instances where people will come up with innovative ideas. They try to sell what is coming up out of that innovative idea, but the government is saying, well, you can't be able to sell this.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because the policy framework, the standards are not there. Because as you can imagine, when we were making the policies, we didn't think there would come an innovation.
True.
So it is our job also to broker that relationship between the young people and government so that they can enable them to scale their businesses. So in a nutshell, that is what we've been doing. And we look at three main sectors, which obviously have some bias in terms of climate change. That is agriculture, renewable energy, and water management.
Okay, so a wide scope clearly, and I see that the one thing you're focusing on, Professor, is the youth and their innovation and looking at climate change as an opportunity, like you said, as opposed to a threat, which is something that, you know, world over, scientists and those who are advocating have always held that sort of belief that, you know, we're doing wrong by the environment, our actions are impacting things negatively. But also, I want to talk about some of the projects that I saw on your website, which were very interesting, and like there was the one that is BioAfric Energy, and I realized that it's got to do with the logging, ban on logging that the government has extended for a year since last year, November now, and you partnered with them as KCIC. So what is that all about?
Well, and that's a good point. And this is one of the renewable energy kind of clients, because we call them clients. And basically what they are trying to do is to try and figure out, can we provide Kenyans with an alternative solutions? Because you realize that 80% of the household in Kenya are using wood fuel as a source of cooking.
Yes.
Well, what this means is that we keep on saying Kenya have the forest cover in Kenya is about 7%, and it's declining. It's declining because we are cutting our trees for charcoal and for firewood. Well, can we be able to provide an alternative that then should be able to help our Kenyan mothers, our families, to be able to have an alternative? And this is a solution which young people have innovated, where they can be able to use what we call briquettes, and sustainable briquettes, which then can be used for cooking to replace, for instance, firewood in schools and firewood in households, and which then means that we preserve our forests, but at the same time also we reduce what we call indoor house pollution, which obviously 50% again of Kenyan women who are above the age of 60 are blind. They are blind because we've been using a lot of charcoal, we've been using a lot of wood fuel, and these have a lot of smoke, which then leads to indoor house pollution, which then affects their eyesight. And that's the challenge. So this is a solution which is, one, trying to provide a solution to Kenyans, but more importantly also, in a bigger picture, trying to reduce our emissions in terms of the carbon emissions, which then is a good thing for climate change.
Wow, that statistic is quite alarming, actually. Such a huge number of women who have eye problems because of this fuel that we're using. So clearly education also needs to play a big role in this entire agenda.
Precisely, and one of the biggest components that have been missing for a long time in this country is that awareness creation. So within KCIC, within Kenya Climate Innovation Center, we realized that we were working very specifically on issues of supply. Meaning that we are churning out solutions that should be able to help Kenyans. But nobody on the other side is telling Kenyans the relevance of having these products. So we took it upon ourselves, a small institution, to try and create the required awareness, to tell Kenyans, hey, look, these are the challenges and this is the solution. That for us is a kind of a benefit, in the sense that we educate Kenyans, but more importantly, we create demand for our products which are being made by the entrepreneurs that we are supporting.
Okay. All right. So I also realized that you have done some research in impact investment, and what does your analysis predict for us? Because you've analyzed emerging trends in this, opportunities, challenges for Africa and for Kenya. So what exactly is impact investment, first of all?
Well, yeah, what I've done is that I've published a book on impact investing trends in Africa, which was out with Palgrave Macmillan in this December.
Okay.
And really, impact investing is where we are saying, well, let's just not invest. Let's invest with a purpose. And really sectors where we couldn't invest money before, because of course of our drive to have what we call financial return, we are saying, well, financial return is not just enough. Can we go beyond the financial return, and we have social returns, we have environmental returns. And this will mean that things like, for instance, sanitation, or even renewable energy, not many people were interested in those sectors because it was more profitable to be in, well, like fossil fuel. It is more profitable to be in supermarket and stuff like that, as opposed to the social things. So impact investing is a new class of investment or asset class, which is, taking off at a very high rate, especially in Africa, because you realize that Africa have many challenges. Challenges of health, challenges of education, challenges of accessibility to water, and the only solution to that is private sector rethinking the model of capitalism and saying, well, it's not just about the shareholder. What about if we look at other stakeholders? And other stakeholders will be the communities. What is it that we can do to empower the communities, but at the same time, we are making money? Basically, what previously we've been calling CSR within organization, at the advanced stage is called impact investing. And we are saying, well, let's move from cosmetic social behavior within companies, which is more PR-based, to move to more entrenched embedding of sustainability within their businesses, which is sustainability and which is impact investing.
So people, planet, and profit,
Precisely.
not just the profit.
Not just the profit, and that way is how we'll be able to move masses, and we'll be able to create benefit, and we'll be able to safeguard the livelihoods of future generations.
And I think a lot of people have had this stereotypical apprehension that, you know, when we go into things like renewable energy, it's going to not be the most profitable, it's going to be costly. And like you say, that is shifting, that mindset needs to shift when we talk about impactful investment.
Yeah, and the traditional way of thinking was that we are doing these things to feel good.
Yeah.
And many of us, or many corporates, even today, well, in Africa, this is also from the book, is something which is catching up. We still see the traditional thinking, the traditional mindset, where companies are still in those cocoons where they are saying, well, let's do it to feel good, or greenwashing, let's make people happy. But the narrative now is changing, and we are saying doing good is also good business. And that's why you've seen companies like Safaricom, company like KCB, taking the lead, saying, wait a minute, it's not only about the pockets of our shareholders.
True.
What about other stakeholders, and how can we, for instance, empower the Kenyan youth? M-Pesa, for instance, how can we be able to have financial inclusiveness in this country? And that, those are kind of the things. But they have to make sure that, so that it becomes sustainable, it must be entrenched in the business strategy.
True.
So it's not just an isolated item, because otherwise it becomes an isolated item, it will be very costly, and the shareholders who want to make their pockets better will always question that. So it should be linked to the revenue models of the businesses.
Okay, and as you mentioned, you know, there are companies now who are taking on that more and more, especially Safaricom even. And even they're also involved in agriculture, like so many others. There are these companies coming up with text-based solutions whereby farmers can text each other solutions when they have a question, a query, they have a problem, because, you know, that interconnectivity is so important. But when we touch on agriculture especially, it is of course the backbone of our country. We've heard this time and again. And expenditure on farm inputs increased by 14%. That is between 2016 to 2017. So you were also involved in proofing the concept for Kickstart International, which is a solution for irrigated farmlands. Correct. So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so Kickstart, many of us know, is Aprotech. It's a company which was started here probably 20, 30 years ago. And they had this handmade pump where people would pedal and then pump water for irrigation for small pieces of, say, quarter an acre. And it's scaled to the rest of Africa, and we have seen it moving thousands of Africans out of poverty. Well, the beauty now is that they have come up with an idea how they can be able to use the solar energy for pumping. Well, which is a kind of an upgrade from the traditional system, and which then means that, first of all, the system is about $1,000. And more importantly, also the fact that it can go to a bigger area. So you can have half an acre, you can have 1 acre, and they're using that system to, obviously, for those who had the human pump, to shift to the solar pump. And what we have seen is that by helping them to prove that concept, because obviously this is an innovation. Nobody had ever done a small-scale water pumping system, which is solar. So we gave them about $50,000, which is about 5 million shillings, to go in and try to test a system that they had conceptualized. And now I'm happy to say, well, we have seen many farmers who are uptaking this, and hopefully very soon it will scale to the rest of Africa and transform lives, because that's the most important thing.
Okay, that's incredible. And, you know, just as we wrap up very briefly, you said you've provided them with that funding. So if I were to come to you with a green innovation, how would that work for me? How would I be able to get that from you? I'm going to let you digest that and think about it, because we'll be right back after a short break and you'll tell me more about that.
Sure.
All right, we are, of course, in conversation with Edward Mungai. He is the CEO of Kenya Climate and Innovation Center. He is also a lecturer at Strathmore and Business School leader. And we're still talking about climate change and the initiatives that KCIC has, all about that and more. Stay with us. We'll be right back with that conversation.
This is KTN News.
Nowhere where the economy is headed in 2019? Join us this Saturday, 19th January, for a panel discussion on Kenya's 2019 economic outlook. To attend, visit www.saiton.com/training and subscribe now. This event is sponsored by Saiton Asset Managers Limited, a company regulated by the Capital Markets Authority, CMA, and the Retirement Benefits Authority, RBA. See you then.
Now, let's be honest, some of our estates have very, very serious and grave issues.
Hatujapata formal settlement.
We are ready to demonstrate.
So they were grabbers.
It has never had streetlights.
So there's an overload on the sewerage system.
Now, earlier on, estates were defined by the suitability of accommodation and political connotations.
The Kenyatta's mom, where she used to live.
I was one of the first person to get this house.
Tuna wachezaji kama Dennis Oliech.
Come with me. Habari gani mzee? Uko mzima? Asante sana kwa kutukaribisha Kangundo.
I came here on 23rd of June 1970. That's when I moved in.
Hapo.
To make the area clean. And once in a while you get people who don't want to pay you.
We used not to use Maka. City Council was very, very strict.
An area code has been that platform where residents get to air out some of their concerns.
Hey, I prefer to stay in a gated community these days.
Imezungukwa na malls mingi. High-rise kulikuwa msitu.
Because Juba Zabrubu, they are on one toilet.
Area code will be visiting not a town near you, but actually your own town.
If we redefined convenience to something that's more of your taste, what if we'd serve the world to you with a single tap pop, letting you wake up to the freshest details and info about everything happening in the world around you on your preferred device? Introducing the Standard Digital e-paper, the smartest, most reliable, credible, and portable source of news for you, with updates, links, and stories fresh off the press into your inbox for you to tap pop and read away. It's everything you need to stay up to date and in the know, no matter where you are or time of day. It's news in your hand. Just tap pop away. To subscribe, go to newsstand.standardmedia.co.ke or download the app from Google or Apple stores to get your news to go. Now, that's Tap Pop convenience. Standard Digital e-paper. News to go.
Win 25 million with Lotto Joto. Draw every day at 9 p.m. Send 50 bob to pay bill 298899. Account Joto.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us right here on Business Today. As you very well know, we aim to bring you the latest developments in the corporate world, as well as keep you up to date on the different sectors within the business world that matter, everything from the economy to agriculture to other industries that we are keeping a beat on for you. Now, first of all, of course, we do want you to answer our Twitter poll question for the afternoon. And that particular question is all to do with the fuel prices that we have have seen a drop after the ERC once again revised the prices. Now, how will the drop in fuel prices affect your budget? That is our question on Twitter. Let me know at Malika Kazia. Of course, you can tweet at KTN Kenya with that hashtag KTN Business. So I want to sample some of the feedback that we are getting from you. Do continue to engage with us. We want to hear your thoughts. Now, Rono says it will boost savings and have the saved money channeled to do something worthwhile. We've got Washira there saying, not much at all. It's too little, too late. A barrel of crude oil is around $45 in the international market, and this refined fuel should cost around 65 shillings in Kenya. It's too little, period. All right. Well, those are some of the thoughts coming in there from Washira. Like I said, we will keep sampling what you have to say. And all your thoughts coming through on Twitter, do keep them coming. All right, now we continue with the bulletin and our next story on sugar. Now, the National Sugar Task Force has been meeting in Kisumu town. The Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Mwangi Kiunjuri, and Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, co-chairs of the task force. And there is a pressure that 2.6 cane deliveries arrears. Now, what's happening there? Oparanya promised to pay the farmers by next week. Cabinet Secretary for Devolution, Eugene Wamalwa, has urged continuous engagements with farmers, and the task force was formed following the directive of President Uhuru Kenyatta on 20th October last year to look into the issues of the ailing sugar sector. Take a look.
The payment of farmers. And I remember yesterday when I talked to my co-chair, the CS Agriculture, I emphasized this issue of payments, that it was important that we pay farmers before going to meet them. And that is my position at the moment. In fact, after this meeting, I'm hopeful all of us will be together so that we issue a press statement to outline the important issues that we will have agreed here and the way forward before we present this report to the President.
Now, of course, we've been telling you about fuel prices in Kenya, but we cannot ignore what's happening in Zimbabwe right now with regards to fuel. Let's see now then. Now, police have used tear gas as anger over a fuel price hike in Zimbabwe and over the wider economic crisis spilled onto the streets. On Saturday, President Emmerson Mnangagwa announced a 150% fuel price hike meant to tame oil shortage. Take a look at that story now.
Protesters barricaded roads and burned tyres in Zimbabwe on Monday as anger over the worst economic crisis in decades spilled onto the streets. Police responded with tear gas in a bid to contain unrest in Zimbabwe's second biggest city, Bulawayo. The outrage was sparked by a massive fuel price hike announced by President Emmerson Mnangagwa on Saturday. That increase by 150% was a bid to control a runaway currency crunch, but was met with disbelief in a country where over 80% of the population is unemployed.
I'm confused. All of a sudden, the price of fuel has shot up to $3 a litre. As it stands, we don't know how much to charge our passengers. They don't have any money anyway.
In November, inflation hit 31%, the highest it's been since 2008, when, under former President Robert Mugabe, it reached 500 billion%. Wiping out savings and pensions and ultimately leading to Zimbabwe abandoning its currency in favour of the dollar. On Friday, the Zimbabwean finance minister said a new currency would be introduced in the next 12 months as the next measure to end the cash crisis. Meantime, the currency shortage has plunged the country into economic disarray. The price of basic goods has spiralled and medical supplies are scarce. Motorists wait for hours to fill up at petrol stations, where soldiers are often deployed to break up fights over who is next in line. Zimbabwean authorities are keen to avoid a repeat of the post-election violence seen in August, in which 6 people were killed after the army intervened. Riot trucks patrolled downtown Harare on Monday and some businesses closed early. Parents were called to pick up their children from school as the population braces for a potential flare-up in violence.
Definitely a precarious situation there in Zimbabwe, but coming back within our borders, once again, motorists and commuters still on fuel are set to enjoy lower transport costs following that release of the monthly pump prices for January. And like we said earlier, in the latest review, Super Petrol has reduced by 9 shillings 33 cents. It's retailing at 104 shillings 21 cents per litre in Nairobi. Diesel had the highest price change. A litre of diesel will go down by 10 shillings and 4 cents, and kerosene reported the lowest drop of 3 shillings and 52 cents, retailing at 101 shillings 70 cents. Now, the ERC did say that the cost of crude for deliveries that were ordered in December was 12.5% lower at $59.50 per barrel compared to the price of $68 per barrel in November last year, and that has been attributed for the steep fall in pump prices. Now, joining us by way of phone is Steve Biko. He is an analyst who is going to be talking to us a little bit more about these fuel prices and what it means really for us. So I want to first of all, welcome Steve onto the program. And Steve, I hope you can hear me. The first question, of course, that I want to ask you is that this steep decline that we have seen in pump prices, do you see it staying at this particular rate for a long time? What do you predict for the long term when it comes to the pump prices, as much as there are celebratory cries right now? Steve, I'm hoping that, we have established a connection now. Once again, I want to repeat the question for you that I had asked. It was that, of course, we've seen this reduction in prices at the pump, and as they've attributed it to the lower percentage that they had to pay per barrel. But do you see these prices continuing for some time to come? What do you predict for the longevity of these prices at the pump right now?
Malika.
Yes, Steve, yes. All right, we seem to have an issue with that particular connection there. But of course, it is all to do with the pump prices, and fuel, as we do know, has been a conversation that many have had for the past couple of months, even late last year, and it was with that particular tax of 8%. Would it have gone to 16%? And then we saw that it did stick at 8% with the Finance Act 2018. So there has been a lot of conversation with regards to fuel right now that we've been telling you all about the reduction in prices at the pump. We did try to get Steve Biko there to give us some insights. He's an analyst. We'll try to reestablish that connection later on for you. But I want to continue this conversation that I was having before we went on that break, and I promised you we will come back with Edward Mungai. He is a Strathmore business lecturer and school leader, as well as the CEO of Kenya Climate and Innovation Center. So we were continuing this conversation, and I do know KCIC is prone to, collaborating financially with innovators. So like I said before we went on that break, what does it take for an innovator to be able to collaborate with KCIC financially and to get some financial backing from you?
Yeah. Well, I think the first step that you need is obvious to have an innovation. And that innovation, normally we tell people, is not just about a technology. It could also be a business model. It could be the way you are distributing your product. It could be the way you are selling your product, meaning probably a pay-as-you-go system. And once you have an innovative idea, the next thing is just to go to our website, which is kenyacic.org. There's an application portal there. You will put your idea, and we look at it at the backside, and very soon we'll invite you for an interview, because we'll have conversations. And once we have conversations, if you qualify, meaning that you are in the right sector, there is an innovation, and you can see the business potential, and also we can be able to see that you can be able to scale, then we'll invite you to join us as part of our clients. And from there, then we will be able to decide whether you need proof of concept money, which is up to $50,000, which is $5 million. Well, it could also be that you qualify for what we call early stage financing, meaning that you have moved a little bit further in terms of your startup. That goes up to a maximum of 10 million shillings. And then if you are as an SME, well, you can qualify for 50 million, which is $500,000. And this is the packages that we have in terms of investment. And then we believe, or we do think that we should work together with you. It is your business, but we are your partner, and we walk the journey with you, trying to put the right systems, to put the right people in your business, and also giving you ideas so that then you can be able to make even more money, but at the same time changing the livelihoods of Kenyans.
That's very, very generous. It sounds like it's definitely something that the organization is passionate about. But at the same time, you say you partner with them for the long term as well, and try to work together. So does the institution then end up also taking a part of the profit?
Well, yes, we do, but only at a later stage. And that is when we are giving you the 50 million shillings, is when now we believe that your business have scaled, and therefore we should have some stake. But otherwise, in the earlier stages, we are just trying an idea together with you, and we know that it can fail, it can succeed, and we have seen many fail. But at the same time, we have seen many succeed. And therefore, we don't want to bother you by saying, well, we have 5% of your business. Remember, the money that we've got from the Danish government and from the UK government is really to test these ideas. So therefore, we should also extend that hand. First of all, give it for you for free to test. And if you succeed, then when we are giving you more money is when now we say, well, we need some skin in the game. And we need us also to be part of the equation. And hopefully then we can own the business together and succeed. But you will still remain to be the majority owner of your business.
Okay, and like you say, you've seen so many innovations, some have failed. What has been the most surprising innovation that you have come across that has made you say, wow, that's just something I never imagined?
Well, interesting question. Well, it's in agriculture, and this is a company which is in a place called Zambezi in Kiambu County. And this is a gentleman who walked into our office and said he had this brilliant idea of how he can be able to grow crops without soil. Well, that was, we couldn't understand what he was talking about, but at the same time he had patented a tray with kildi and with kipi, which then was where he could put seeds of things like wheat, and then those seeds he would put some formula, and that would take about 7 days, and within those 7 days it could be fed to cows and to pigs, and that increased the yield for farmers by about 20%. Wow. Well, what is interesting about this business is now that it has scaled to more than 10 counties in Kenya, but more important is that he's now in Tanzania, he's now in Uganda, and he's in Rwanda. And he's also been able to manage to raise $1.2 million into his business. So that is a case where we have seen really big changes. And also in terms of the people that he have employed, he moved from 2 people to about 200 people. So that is what I think is one of the successful cases that we have seen, just from an idea to 200 employees.
That's amazing. Yeah. And as we talk about innovators, specifically, of course, you as a professor, and do you think that, the crop of students who are in tertiary learning right now, are they very much inclined towards such work, such renewable energy businesses and agriculture as well, or do you see them leaning away from such sectors?
Yeah, well, it's a real challenge in 2 perspectives. One, first of all, we are not training our students to be entrepreneurs. The second thing is that we train our students to be employed. And this is the biggest challenge that we are facing when you talk about agriculture. Well, you tell this 17-year-old, 20-year-old that you want to introduce or you want them to go do agriculture in the university, they will commit suicide. And the reason why they'll commit suicide is because agriculture is no longer cool. And we just need to figure out, together with government, together with civil society and private sector, how can we actually make agriculture to be cool? Well, the apps that you talked about, that is a way of trying to encourage more and more young people to move into these sectors, because then they are more versed with issues of computers more than us. Well, sometimes we say we are BBC, meaning born before computer, and therefore they are better off to deal with those things. But we should encourage and help systems, infrastructure that would help them to innovate towards technology and implement technology in that, and that will make it more exciting. Well, we need also to do something with our curriculum, and I hope that the new curriculum will be able to resolve this problem in terms of always training students for jobs. We need to train students where they can become entrepreneurs, and therefore we can be able to have more and more being self-employed, and that can become exciting, and we can create more and more jobs.
So much insight, Professor Mungai. Thank you for that. As we just wrap up the conversation, very briefly, I want you to tell me how you look at the current, energy-related stance that Kenya has. President Uhuru Kenyatta did say that we want to get to that 100% green energy efficiency in a couple of years and things like that. But you are in that space of renewable energy, maximizing on that, capitalizing on that. So where do you see Kenya standing in terms of green energy today?
Well, first of all, Kenya is very fortunate. Fortunate in the sense that we have a lot of our power coming from hydros.
True, 70%.
Well, precisely. And also we have geothermal.
Yeah.
Well, we still need, and I think the President is right, and the Ministry of Energy is moving towards the right direction, in the sense that we have sun which we haven't harvested. And we have it, like, for instance, almost 12 hours a day. That is something that we can harvest, but then the policy framework that is required to enable that is what probably government, private sector, and academia, and civil society actually should work together to come up with proper frameworks. Things like what we call net metering, where basically it's saying, in my house I can have a small solar panel, which then I can be able to exchange power with KPLC, for instance. And this will encourage more people to invest into that area. But this goal of getting to 100%, it's possible, and we should be able to achieve that in the shortest time possible, because we are endowed with the resources. We have wind, we have solar, we have hydro, and we have geothermal. We are in such a beautiful place in the world that we can be able to achieve this goal.
Very true. Thank you so much, Professor Mungai, for your insights on a wide variety of topics, and also, of course, on climate change specifically.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we have just wrapped up that conversation with the CEO of Kenya Climate and Innovation Center, Edward Mungai, who is also a Strathmore lecturer and business school leader. All right, so now there is a developing story of gunfire on Chiromo Road. We want to take a look at exactly what's happening. Like I said, we have a breaking news story of gunfire at Chiromo Road. We will be telling you more about that in our subsequent bulletins and keeping you up to date with exactly what is going on in that particular situation there. Like I just said, we are just getting some breaking news of gunfire at Chiromo Road. All right, now as we wrap up the bulletin of business today, we are of course sampling some of your Twitter responses to our Twitter poll question, and the question that we asked you was all about the fuel prices, as we have also discussed it quite heavily with you. And the question that we had was, how will the drop in fuel prices affect your budget? You could have told us your thoughts at KTN Kenya with that hashtag KTN Business. And I'm seeing Ruben saying nothing at all. The idea of reducing the prices of fuel by a margin of 10 shillings was a very nice idea, but the sad thing is no matatu operator has reduced the bus fare. All right, and nobody, he says, is addressing this crucial issue. It might be the primary indicator of fuel price. That's a response we're getting there from Ruben. We're also seeing Wilson there saying okay, that was Wilson sharing his thought on another particular question, and a lot of your responses, of course, coming in that we are sampling now. Earlier on, we also had Rono saying that this fuel price change will boost savings, and what you save will be channeled to something worthwhile. Like I said earlier in our breaking news, there was a gunfire, and particular along Riverside Drive. As more details are coming in, like I told you just a couple of minutes back, gunfire at Chiromo and Road. What we're hearing is that at Riverside Drive, and the building is Prime Bank. So once again, that latest developing story for you, the Prime Bank building at Riverside Drive. There has been gunfire there, and as we get more details, we will keep you up to date in our subsequent bulletins here on KTN News. Thank you very much for joining me. Do stay with us for more as that particular story develops, as well as other stories that matter right here on KTN News. My name is Malika Kazia.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
Throughout history, culture shaped the world and the way we lived. And now, 2,000 years later, culture is evolving and mankind is changing. The African continent has continued to maintain its place, each culture unique in its own way. Culture Quest, an insight into the diverse populations that inhabit the continent of Africa.
Now, let's be honest, some of our estates have very, very serious and grave issues.
Hatujapata formal settlement.
We are ready to demonstrate.
So they were grabbers.
It has never had streetlights.
So there's an overload on the sewerage system.
Now, earlier on, estates were defined by the suitability of accommodation and political connotations.
The Kenyatta's mom, where she used to live.
I was one